Hi, welcome to Strategy Execution and the Art of Saying No. I am Mike Coffey, President of Imperative Information Group. This webinar is approved for both HRCI and SHRM credit, and you will get an email at the end of the webinar with the recertification credit information if you're watching it live. If you're watching the recording, the information will also be sent to you after you've completed it, watching it on our website. This presentation is the first of 3 in a series. This one talks about strategy execution. The next one talks about values, company values, and the third is on ethics, and it will meet the HRCI requirement for ethics, an hour of ethics in each recertification cycle. This presentation is largely based on David Maister's work in his book, Strategy and the Fat Smoker. I'll also add that Jim Collins' classic Good to Great is pretty much the Bible in a lot of what we're talking about here. And I think he took ideas that were largely already out there in different organizations and kind of fused them together in a cohesive pattern. He's affected over the last 2 decades how I think about vision, purpose, and execution. And then Gino Wickman made it really simple in the book called Traction, and he gave us a tab A and slot A approach to how we put these kind of things in place in his book Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business. So those, there's, other than just my experience and just, working with clients, mentoring the owners of emerging small businesses through the Entrepreneur Organizations Accelerator Program, and just reading a lot and having experience and attending conferences and all of that. Not much of this is really my stuff. I just came up with good pictures and interesting words, hopefully, to go with the concepts. But I will say that David Maister's metaphor of this fat smoker gets used heavily in this presentation. He wrote that first article in the Harvard Business Review, probably, I think, around 2012 or 2013. And it may be something that HBR may not even publish today because of all the stigmas around fat shaming and all that. So I'm going to use his metaphors pretty heavily here because I think it's really helpful, but please understand that nothing I'm doing here today is here to shame people with health or addiction issues. But I hope that the examples are useful in helping us all realize that with clear-eyed honesty about our circumstances, where we are right now and where we want to go, the value of accountability and a steady plan, how we can make real changes in our personal lives, certainly, and in our businesses and in our professional lives. So let's start with a fat smoker. We've all heard, and seen in our lives times where we knew the right thing to do probably, but we couldn't quite get it done. And the story goes that the doctor or the fat smoker goes to the doctor and says, I feel horrible. And the doctor tells him what? Lose weight, quit smoking. And it'll improve the quality of your life. And the fat smoker said, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to eat less. Maybe I'm going to exercise. I'm going to do things. But 6 months later, he goes back to the doctor. He's heavier and he's still smoking. And it's the same in our professional lives and as in our personal lives, same in our companies as well. We set all these new strategies. We come up with, we read this book, we attend this conference, we come back excited, and we make these plans, but then we don't execute. And why don't we execute? What happens between that time where we're all excited and we're resolved and we know this is really what we need to do, and 6 months later, where nothing's really happened, we've lost energy, we've lost focus, we're doing something else, but we're not getting where we said we wanted to get to 6 months ago. Why is that? In David Maister's book, he says the reason for this is that the rewards and the pleasure are in the future. the disruption, discomfort, and discipline that we need to get where we want to go, they're immediate. And so when we're looking, 6 months in advance, down the road, that all looks great. But right now we have disruption, discomfort, and discipline that's needed to do what we need to do. And that's an obstacle for us. So what we really always need to remember is that strategy, changing how we run our companies, how we run our personal lives, it is a marathon. It's not a dash. It's not we're not doing 100 meters here. This is a long-term, slow, and steady process. The fat smoker, in order to survive, in order to improve the quality of his life, he has to change his lifestyle. Just deciding, okay, I'm going to smoke a little less. I'm going to go from 4 packs a day to 2 packs a day. Or I'm only going to eat McDonald's every day at lunch. I'm going to cut out my breakfast at McDonald's. I'm going to cut out my dinner at McDonald's, but I'm just going to eat it at lunch every day. That's not going to get him there. A crash diet won't. Fad diets generally don't work unless you really commit and build a process around it. I got on the keto diet, and if you've known me very long, you already know that because I tell everybody that. But I got on the keto diet almost 3 years ago, and it's been wonderful for me. But it changed a lot of how I live my life, how I structure my meals, and how I think about where I'm going to even go eat or what places I'm going to go do. So these short-term plans, these just gimmicks, they lead to disappointment, and then it leads to cynicism. And we hear that all the time in our companies, don't we? Well, we tried that, it didn't work. And it's kind of that fatalist approach that we did it for 2 months before, it didn't happen, or we set these goals before and they weren't achieved. So we don't even, it won't work here or whatever. Well, it probably can work here, but it's going to change. It's going to take planning, and it's going to take changing how we conduct our business. And a big part of that is deciding what we're willing to give up and recognizing what we're probably not willing to give up. In 1519, the explorer Hernan Cortez hit the Gulf of Mexico and came across what we now call Mexico. He had 600 men in his boats with him. They all got off the boat, got on the shore, and then he gave the order, burn the boats. And they sat there and watched their only way to get back to the old world, back to Europe, go up in smoke. Now that's commitment. They were stuck. They had to survive and claim for the king what we know as Mexico, the new world. That's commitment, okay? So while it's fun to discuss goals, we like our strategy planning sessions. We love doing SWOT analysis, and we like going on these strategic retreats. It's all great, but it's pointless if we don't examine what we're going to have to give up, what that discomfort is going to be, what our sacrifices are going to look like, what do we have to change, what commitments do we have to make, and sometimes what habits as individually, what leadership habits do we have in an organization that we're going to have to change or give up permanently and forever. This isn't, again, if we're going to change how we conduct our business, if we're going to change the strategy of our business, we're going to implement these new programs, we've got to realize that this isn't temporary. And are we willing as an organization, are we willing as leaders to make those changes, to make those sacrifices? When it's in our personal life, it's what lifestyle changes are we willing to make in order to achieve, remember the promise of these things down into the future that we hope to achieve. What issues in our organizations are we willing to tackle? If you're in a very established and particularly a larger organization, there are probably things in your organization need to change, but we're not willing to change them because it would hurt too much, or the people who support the way things are have too much political power. And all the employees know that needs to change. And often that is a person who's in the wrong seat, or at least where the organization needs to go. That person in that seat isn't going to get us there. But we have to decide what we're willing to tackle. What boats are we willing to burn, and which boats are we not willing to burn? Which ones are we willing to say, yeah, that's not going to get us where we need to go necessarily, but we're stuck with it. We're not willing to move beyond it. And if that's the case, we have to revisit. Do we really, as an organization, want what we're talking about into the future, about achieving those goals? And can we even achieve them? And if not, we have to say, okay, what smaller scale goal or what other direction should we be looking as an organization to move if we're not willing to burn those boats? Because the reality is everybody in the organization has to be on the same diet. Okay, we all have to be on the same strategy. Everybody always says when you're in Weight Watchers or anything like that, whatever program you're in, the diet that works is the diet you will actually stick with, right? And the same goes for our leadership team. If they're all on the same diet, they're all sticking to the same diet, if they're all embracing our strategy and the path that we've painted as an organization for how we're going to achieve that strategy, how we're going to achieve the goals that come along with that, they have to be on the same page. If they're not, we're not going to get there. But if they are, there's a really good chance that as an organization, we will be there. And if they're not, we're going to have to admit, okay, maybe that's not the goal that we as an organization should be pursuing. We're going to waste a lot of time. We're going to lose credibility with our own employees, with customers, with the public, to the extent that they even know what our goals are. And it's funny because I talk to a lot of organizations who have goals, and the organization set goals, but when you talk to the employees, they have no idea what the goals are. Or if they've heard them, they're like, oh yeah, they talked about that, but they talk about a lot of things, and it rarely happens. And so we may have to say, okay, we as the leadership team said, yeah, we're real excited about this new goal. We want to be the leading high quality provider of this service in our industry. We want to be the ones who say, that people say that company delivers this better than anybody else. But then maybe we have to, when we look at the reality of the way our leadership thinks about things, the processes and procedures we have, the key client relationships that we have. Maybe we have clients who aren't really concerned with us being the top quality and top service organization. What they want is the commodity broker. They want the cheapest, the least expensive, get it to me fast service. So maybe we say we're not really committed to high level of quality and service. We make plenty of money being the adequate quality, low cost provider. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's where you are and that's who you are as an organization, and you're not willing to shed all of the things that come with being the low quality, adequate quality, low cost provider, then let's not fool ourselves. Let's not waste our time. Let's not create this identity crisis with our customers, with our suppliers, with our employees. Let's just stick with that. But if we say, yeah, we really are willing to do that, then we identify as a leadership team, and then we flow that through the organization. Here's the commitment we're making. We're going to stick to this plan. This is how we're going to get where we want to go. It's really important, and we're all on the same page with it. And if you are, then you may well get there. What happens in too many organizations, though, is the same thing that happens to the fat smoker. What's the thing that's most likely to get the fat smoker to quit smoking and lose weight? It's going to be that crisis. He's going to have some health event that puts him in a hospital and scares him. My dad had 3 bypass surgeries before he quit smoking. And it was after the 3rd bypass surgery, his heart surgeon said, there are no more veins left. you don't have any veins we can use in your left in your legs. There's no way for us to do anything else. Your next one will probably kill you. And lo and behold, my dad quit smoking. Unfortunately, he had done too much damage to himself and just lived a few more years. We lost him in 2019. But the fact was, it was too late for him. But that crisis, if the doc had given him that message after the first one, he may well have made that change. But many people do die because it's too late. Or in companies, the market changes and we're not responsive to it. Profits plunge. We have major clients leave us, or we have lawsuits. There are a lot of things that can happen to a company. Giant employee retention is a giant issue right now, and people are losing employees left and right. And I'm still convinced that the employees who are leaving their companies probably wanted to leave them 6 months or a year ago, but right now it's a seller's market for employees, and they can go find other jobs. And so those are the ones who were leaving are not your most engaged employees in the first place, probably. And that's not their fault. It's really your job as an employer to find a way to engage them and to get the that discretionary effort that we're really looking for out of them. And so we lose all those things if we wait until the crisis to make change. You can make change in crisis, and there are stories of companies that have done 180-degree turns and really become a whole new organization in the face of a crisis, and that's great. But if you can see it on the horizon, it's something that you need to do, then why not just figure out how to get it done right now? So that's a lot of change in an organization. And David Maister in his book goes through 6 items that we need to realize, the 6 lessons for change management that he thinks are most important for us to recognize as an organization and individually, I would argue, about making change. And the first is, this is all about we got to realize this is a permanent change in lifestyle. And think about it this way: a wedding is an event, right? And it's a wonderful day. What I remember my wedding almost 25 years ago. I hope the 25th anniversary gift is paper or something. I hope it's not like diamonds or something, because that's coming up in January. But anyway, the wedding is an event. Okay. It's a lot of fun from what I remember. But a marriage is a lifestyle. And any of us who thought our marriage and day in, day out being married was going to be the same thing as what life is like, we were probably surprised by that, right? Okay, Kara tells me that the 25th anniversary is silver. So, okay, I'll get her a filling. How's that? That's what she'll get for her anniversary. But we got to realize that when we're implementing strategy, it's not a program separate from the rest of how the company runs. And so it's just not something we roll out and boom, y'all go execute this. It's a day-by-day process, just like a marriage. It's about routines, how we do business on a daily basis. Just like a marriage is about how you relate to your partner day in, day out. It's not about how amazing the wedding was. Some of the best weddings that I've ever attended were, a blast. And then within 4 or 5 years, the marriage was in disarray because the investment was all on the front end, and it was all, princes and princesses and unicorns, but it wasn't the day in, day out grind of living with another person and building a life with them. It's a daily ongoing activity. Second thing Maister says is that you have to change your scorecards. You get what you measure. We've heard that. Jim Collins said that, and it's true. And the scales don't lie. If you've gained 5 pounds and the scale will tell you you've gained 5 pounds. One thing that, I think for me and for a lot of people I know who've been through weight loss programs or just general health things, keeping those scorecards, sometimes that means you got to record, for well over a year. When I got on keto, yeah, see, I talked about keto again, but after I got on keto, I recorded every single stinking meal in an app on my phone to make sure that I was keeping in line with my macros. And because I found that if I didn't do that, I would lie to myself. Okay, yeah, this beer is probably, I've done okay. I've had, I haven't eaten a lot today. I can have this extra beer. I could probably get away with this piece of bread. I could do whatever. And then sure enough, I mean, I was lying to myself, and and when I go back and try to recount everything I'd eaten a day, oh wow, I've just blown all my macros. I'm not eating what I'm supposed to do. We've all got that. So in our personal lives, we know this, and it's the same in our business life. The scales don't lie. If we measure the right things that really represent the progress we want to make, if we're measuring the right things, they will tell us where we're at. And we have to realize that that this commitment requires us to be, in order to be accountable, we have to know where we stand at all times. So you've got to have a scorecard, and I hope you all do, but the scorecard has to have the right things on it that are really going to measure us there. And the scorecard needs to flow down. Leadership needs to be held accountable to the scorecard, but then every contributor in the organization, it probably has some number or some measurable that will reflect their contribution to the change that we're trying to get to. And quite honestly, embarrassment, it's a result of a failure in accountability. It's a much more effective change agent than guilt. Okay. If I feel guilty about something, I'm going to feel guilty, and then I'm going to go, in the case of a diet, I'm going to feel bad about it, and I'm going to go eat something else that I probably shouldn't eat to make the pain go away. But embarrassment, that accountability to your peers, that public accountability, where we say, this is where our target is, but we're right here, and I own this number. This is mine, whether it's sales or revenue or gross margin or production per hour, whatever your number is in your organization. Having a publicly posted, or at least with your peers or your leadership group, a scorecard that everybody sees, where everybody is, and that will drive your folks to meet those goals. And you need leadership that's not going to just forgive them the same way we forgive ourselves too easily. You need leadership that's going to hold them accountable and not help them make excuses why something, these numbers are off and we're not achieving them. There are reasons for it. Let's talk about them. But that just because there are reasons for those numbers being off, and some of them may well be out of your control, but getting those numbers back online, back where we need to be, is your responsibility. You own this, and we're not going to let, oh well, the market's changed, be the excuse for that. So Meister's third rule is that leadership has to get serious or get out of the way. Alexander the Great would lead the companion cavalry into battle. There was no doubt that their general, their leader, was fully committed to their plan. He led them into battle. Okay, there was no doubt about his commitment. And so leaders can't just publish these new strategies, put out some memos, design some beautiful posters, and make sure they get put up all over the facility, and then expect other people to execute on them. They have to act in a way that demonstrates to everybody on their team that they are committed to the course of action that they've set. And they're going to have to, and they have to demonstrate that first and foremost, they're willing to change their own behavior, that they're willing to change how they're incentivized and compensated. They're going to change the way that they manage and reward their employees and the organization. It may be tied to your whole comp policy. It may be just a matter of saying, these are the things we no longer tolerate in this organization. I think that's, we've seen a lot of that since Me Too, and then in the past year, with after the murder of George Floyd, we've seen a lot of employers say, okay, we are as an organization going to make these changes to how previously underrepresented groups are treated, how we recruit and select and hire employees, how we give people voices in our organizations. And that's going to start here. You can hold me as the leader of the organization accountable. And we'll see. Some will do that, some won't in the coming months and in years. But the only way it's ever going to be achieved is if there's leadership support behind it. Otherwise, employees aren't going to engage in all the stress, stretch behaviors, all the additional effort that it takes in order to change the way the company is run, to move the company towards whatever new goals they've set. We talk about employee engagement all the time, and that's what this is all about. If employees are disengaged, if they don't trust leadership, if they don't find meaning in what the organization is set out to do, then they're not going to get behind this. They're not going to put that discretionary effort into helping the company achieve these goals. They're going to come, punch the clock, do their job, and leave at the end of the day. They're not going to move you forward. It's all about leadership, convincing those employees, demonstrating to those employees that they're committed to it and that they're willing to make the changes necessary. Meister's next principle was that principles are more effective than tactics. And we're all looking for the tab A and slot A, step 1, step 2, step 3 process for how we're going to achieve any goal. And it'd be great. When you go to the bookstore, when there were actual bookstores you could walk into, but you go on Amazon and you look at, there's giant sections of books for self-help, and they're all about making you feel great. They're all about making you, you do this, you do this, you do this, and your hair will grow thicker, and you will lose 20 pounds in your face, or 20 years in your face, and all of those things. We're all looking for the silver bullet, but the reality is that what we really need as an organization, what we really need if we're trying to motivate people to change their behavior, are principles. So the core belief that segregation was wrong, that the government's clear and direct support of one group of people over another, basically just because of their phenotypic characteristics, was wrong. That led people to follow his tactic of nonviolent protest. Okay, that principle that all men were created equal, all men and women were created equal, all God's children, as he said, that would get people out into the streets. He was able to motivate people that the injustices that he saw in the world were sufficient that we should be fighting this. Had he simply said, the tactic is going to be, we're going to walk out and we're going to march, and we expect the police are going to let dogs loose on us. They will bring out fire hoses and spray us down, and then they'll beat the hell out of us with billy clubs. How many people would have just signed up for that? That's the tactic, right? That's what we're going to do. We're going to do that. It'll be on camera, and maybe we'll be able to rally the country around us. People wouldn't have signed up for that. They needed to believe first in the principles that he was teaching. And as companies, we need to do the same thing. We give great customer service because it leads to more repeat sales and more profit. That's tactical. That's not exciting for your employees. It's not inspiring to them. They're not going to move heaven and earth to move the company forward because of that. But if we give great customer service because we hire amazing people who are dedicated to serving our amazing clients and making their lives better, that's a principle. We want this to be a place where you do your best work every day, where you get up in the morning energized for coming to work. That's a principle. That's what people will come to. And so if your implementation of strategy doesn't have a message that's exciting to your employees, that that says, okay, this is the organization I want to work for. This is where we're going. I'm excited about that. Then you're going to have a really hard time getting them to do what they need to do to move the organization forward. But then the thing we have to remember is that people have to volunteer. And that's Maester's fifth principle, is that people have to volunteer to participate in this kind of program. Just like any kind of self-help, Alcoholics Anonymous or a drug rehab program, if participants are just at gunpoint and they have to go through those processes and participate in those meetings, they're a lot less likely, if they're successful at all, they're going to be a lot less likely to be successful than somebody who is at the point in their lives where they're willing to volunteer, willing to make a personal commitment without coercion, without without the fear, just the fear of going to jail. If that was enough, we wouldn't have drug problems in the country, right? We wouldn't have a lot of the social ills if jail was enough to keep people from bad social behavior. We wouldn't have any because the jails are full. It's not working, right? The same in your organization. The organization, in order to make the changes we need to make in the organization, we have to get people excited about it, but then they've got to step up and volunteer for it. And it may mean that down the line, we have to invite some people to exit the bus, right? I know that's almost a business cliche of the right people in the right seats, or what Jim Collins talked about, getting the right people on the bus and off the bus. But it's a cliche. Sometimes they're cliches because they're true. And we have to be willing to say, okay, there are going to be some folks in this organization who this isn't the thing that they want to do. Maybe you've got a CFO who sees retirement right around the corner, and implementing this whole new financial strategy just doesn't excite them. And maybe they'll go along with it, but they're not going to be fired up about it. And maybe they'll be passively negative about it. And they're not on board. They're not going to push it. Those are the people that sometimes you just have to go and let them leave. And if we're going to get where we need to go as an organization, we need everybody pulling in the same direction and sharing the same vision about where and what we're trying to accomplish here. And sometimes we have to invite, or sometimes it's not an invitation for them to leave. It's an escort them out the door. We've got to get them out of the room. But most of the time, treated with respect, given a clear understanding of what we're trying to achieve and what it's going to take from that person in order and whoever's in that role for the company to achieve this, those people will usually self-select out. And that's the ideal. Maester said, everyone in the organization has to decide if they want to try hard enough to sacrifice some of the present to achieve a better tomorrow. And some folks their horizon isn't 5 years from now. They're not committed. They're not thinking about what the company is going to look like 5 years from now. Their horizon is 6 months. And maybe they can do 6 months of great stuff to move us forward. Or maybe they say, no, it's not where I want to be. I don't want to do that effort. Then they need to leave earlier than that 6 months. And it's not about forcing people to do things. It's about saying, okay, this is what we're doing. Get on board and enjoy it with us, or let us help you find your next role, someplace where you're going to be comfortable and you're not going to be an impediment to us as we change the way we do things as we move forward. The other thing we need to remember is that change management's hard, and we get excited right up front, but Rome wasn't built in a day. So we need to remind ourselves consistently that Rome wasn't built in a day, but remember, we are building Rome, what it's going to look like. Paint that big picture of what the world is going to look like when we achieve these goals. And it's the same in our personal lives. I know the other thing, besides keto, I'm a big yogi. I do a ton of yoga, and I'm average. I'm not bad for a 52-year-old guy, but when I know what a yoga pose is supposed to look like, and I say, when I make a commitment that I want to be able to do a headstand, okay, I can do a headstand, not bad. But I need to know what it looks like, what a properly executed headstand looks like. I need that image in my head, and then I'll try it and I'll fall. I'll try it and I fall. I'll try it and I fall. But I always know what it looks like. I know I'm the direction I'm going. We need that in our organizations. We need to know what the big picture is going to look like. How our lives are going to change, how the organization is going to change, what that's going to mean for each employee needs to know what it's going to mean for them when we get there. And we keep that picture in front of them like a carrot, but we have to realize it's going to happen step by step. But we are building Rome, and it just takes time. Alcoholics Anonymous, those kinds of things. Okay, we're making, when I quit drinking, I'm making a lifetime commitment that I'm going to execute day by day by day. The same goes in our organizations. And it can be measured day by day. Each day we can measure our progress. But the other thing to remember is, I said, Rome wasn't built in a day, but we are building Rome. But there is a place for real pressure. And while encouragement is critical, while we should set goals and celebrate them, we need to remember that diamonds are created under pressure. Okay, so we don't want to think too small, and we want to keep the pressure on. We want accountability built into the system. We want aggressive goals. If our revenue goal in 5 years is an additional $10 million in revenue for our organization, and this year though we just want to increase it by $100,000, well, that's not probably going to get us down the road to the target 10 million, but it also is not going to build any excitement or any pressure on our sales teams, on our production teams, on our quality folks, all of those other organizations that contribute to that revenue number. There's no pressure on them, and diamonds are created under pressure to get the things we have to achieve, to achieve the things we want to achieve, to get the things that we want out of this whole process. We have to have that pressure, and we have, so thinking too small is tantamount to not doing anything at all. And how do we do that? Well, let me blow this up. This is Gino Wickman's Vision Traction Organizer. You can find it in his book Traction. And basically it helps us set out our business plan and what we want the organization to look like in 10 years. What's it going to feel like to be here in 10 years? And then backing it up. Okay, if that's in 10 years, what is 3 years going to look like? And what is the organization going to look like in 3 years? And then we back it up even further than that. And we say, okay, to get there in 3 years, what do we have to accomplish this year? What's our 1 year plan? And then this quarter, in order to achieve those 1 year goals, what do we have to do this quarter? What rocks do we have to set for that? And then we always have issues that are out there, the things that we have to resolve. And we can't resolve them all in a single meeting or in a single board retreat. And some of them take months or years to resolve sometimes. But we keep our running list so we don't ever lose track of them. This is all in Gino Wickman's book, in the Traction book, as he outlines the entrepreneurial operating system. There are now here in Texas, there are SHRM chapters that are operating to it. I know dozens and dozens of small businesses, including mine, that operate according to these guidelines. But we go through this process of reviewing all our long-term goals and setting our 1 year goals every year in my organization. Then every quarter we review our progress and set our rocks for each quarter. Again, read Traction for all of that information and how that works. Because and a lot of that is outlined in Jim Collins' book as well, and Good to Great, and his other writing. But the great thing about the way Gino Wickman laid it out in Traction just makes it so easy and so accessible. And we've seen the rocks concept by Stephen Covey. He talks about putting those long-term truly important things first in our personal lives and in our business. And if you put the rocks in, you've heard it, you put the rocks in first into the jar first, and then you can fill in all the small things, the sand, the gravel and the sand, and it all fits in the jar. But if you fill the jar first with all the small things, then you're going to end up not having room for the big important things. So you have to focus and you set those long-term goals, those big rocks that you're talking about. Those have to be first and foremost in all of your planning, in your execution, and always in your accountability, so that your leaders and every contributor in the organization knows these are the things that are priorities. And I should probably add a slide with the Eisenhower, his matrix that helps you differentiate between what's important and what's urgent. And if you've ever seen that, it's a great exercise to go through. I use it a lot when I find that my list of things to do or my attention is all over the place, which happens a lot because I love shiny objects. I'm your typical entrepreneur who is always trying to reinvent the wheel, find a new way to do something, solve a different problem, because I get bored with the same routine things every day. And so using that matrix to help me identify what's really important and what's urgent. And you come in after a few days off work and you've got 300 emails. Are those 300 emails urgent, or are they important? What's it, and some of them may be important. Some of them may be things that really move key relationships ahead, that move the organization forward, help you achieve particular goals. But a lot of those emails are urgent. I need this answer right now. I need this. I need that. I need that. But do they really need those? I mean, how many times have you come across an email 3 months later and you're like, oh, I never responded to that. You call that person up kind of sheepishly and say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't respond to your email. And they're like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Well, but your email was in all caps and like every other word was in bold and red. Oh yeah, well, we figured it out. Don't worry about it. Okay, so it really wasn't even urgent. Even things that we think are urgent aren't always urgent. Now, I do try to stay up on my emails and I do try to respond to people, but sometimes we have to set our priorities. And right now, most of my audience here is in HR, and you definitely have to set priorities right now. This is a year ago, we were living in a world that was totally different than 2019. And now we're in 2021 and we're living in a world that's completely different than 2020. Now I'm hearing, where a year ago, HR people were kind of twiddling their thumbs, or they were mostly worried about either the next round of layoffs or how they were going to bring employees back to the workplace. Now we're just trying to find competent, warm bodies to sit in chairs for us. Recruiting is recruiters are setting their own prices for whatever they want to make. I had lunch with somebody really, really bright in the recruiting industry yesterday. And the numbers that she said that really competent recruiters were demanding in salary now were just totally nuts, but they can do it. And HR people are overworked. And so it's a totally different world than we were in a year ago. But if we can find a way to filter out a lot of the urgent stuff and focus on what's really important, we're going to achieve our goals a lot better than just staying on top of the daily grind of getting all the urgent things done. And we just need to focus on those big rocks as we move forward. And a big part of staying focused is avoiding those shiny objects. And usually, in my experience with HR folks and your accounting folks and folks like that, they are all about execution. And it's hard for me to understand because I'm the exact opposite. I'm not about execution. I'm about the big idea. I'm about solving a problem and moving forward, and then crafting that and handing it to somebody and letting them execute it. Because in your organization, you probably have some visionary leaders, and they're like the cat chasing the laser. Whatever is happening, that's where they're going. And we have to build in accountability systems where leaders are accountable to their employees for staying focused. And it also goes back to the idea that we need a level of accountability in our organization where people trust that when a leader says they're going to do something, that they're really going to do it. And that's still probably that's the area professionally, after having my own company for well over 20 years, and having an amazing staff who executes stuff for for the organization really well. That's probably where I struggle the most still, is being accountable. And my employees do hold me accountable. They've got that freedom, and I think they trust that I'm not going to beat somebody up for not holding me accountable, but or for holding me accountable. If anything, they're going to get in trouble if they don't hold me accountable. That's where I'm going to push back and say, yeah, you're right. That should have happened. I contributed to this loss, but you watched me stumble off into the wrong direction and you didn't call me on it. And so part of your job is to hold me accountable, and I need you to do that. And that's really important. And that may sound unfair to you, but I know what I need. And every employee, we've all got different behaviors. And as leaders, we need to know what our deficits are and where we need help from employees and our peers. And as contributors, we all also have that same thing. We know what other people need and where we need to have that freedom and that trust where we can hold them accountable to stay focused. Because we don't want, if everybody's going off in their own directions again, we're going to be, it goes right back to that idea that we're all on different diets. And if we're not all following the same strategy, we're not focusing on the right things, and we're not going to get where we want to go. And focus is really the reason you can't walk into McDonald's and order a pizza. How many times have we seen restaurants, especially fast food, try to get into some other kind of food that sounded really interesting, and there was some consumer demand for it at a particular time, and it's rarely does it ever work. McDonald's has got a great focus on delivering exactly what people expect on a really consistent basis, and that's because they're focused. And and it goes that way in our business as well. Whatever we set our focus to be and who we want to be, we need to make sure that everything we do reinforces that to our employees, to our customers, to our other stakeholders. So one of the questions we have is, how do we know what opportunities we should pursue as an organization? There's always, I know a company based here in Fort Worth that is in a really unique business. They're probably the best at what they do in that business. COVID quickly impacted their business. Consumer demand dropped away quickly during COVID because that's not something people were going to spend money or attention on. So they got into the PPE business and started doing personal protection equipment, which has nothing to do really with their core business, but they thought, well, we've got the competency of manufacturing, so we should be able to get into this. And it was a disaster. They didn't have, that was an opportunity that came up, but they didn't have the focus. And it was so different than the rest of their business that they were also trying to maintain at the same time. So we need to look at these new opportunities that come to us. And this goes to the same thing personally too. And I'll talk about that in a second, but against the lens, we need to look at all these opportunities through the lens of what our core values are, and what we said our core focus are, who we are as an organization. And so at Imperative, we've got 3 values. They're labeled 1, 2, and 3 here. And I don't like to really put numbers on them because I don't think I don't ever suggest that one's more important than the other, but always act with integrity, always work as one with respect and compassion, and always act in the best interest of the client. Those 3 core values will guide us through every personnel decision we make. Because if you're competent and you've got the basic behaviors and cognitive ability, I can train you to be a background check analyst. It's a very detailed job. And if you've got, again, it goes down to behavior and basic cognitive ability, but I can train most people to do that if they've got those things. But what I can't train into somebody are their values. And I can't change their values. And so, and the same goes for the organization. We have opportunities presented to us from time to time, and I have to look at those. And the first thing I should do, and it's not always what I do first, because I often like the idea of the money that an opportunity may suggest, but ultimately I have to go back to our core values and say, does this line up with our core values? or is there a problem here? Will we be compromising our core values if we pursue this business or this opportunity? And then, we look at, and sometimes an opportunity may come up and we have to say, well, maybe I should really consider doing this. But that means as an organization, we have to change where we say we want to go. And that's perfectly legitimate. It's very few of us in our lives are where we thought we were going to be 15 years ago. Things change, new opportunities come up, and we evaluate things and we make changes in our lives, right? Same in our company, that's fine, but we need to realize that we're doing it as we do it. So it needs to be intentional in how we say, okay, this is where we're going to go. This opportunity has come up. We think this is the best way to serve our customers, or this is the best thing for our employees or our shareholders, our stakeholders. But doing that means that we are going to turn away from this other 10-year objective that we set, and we're going to pursue this other route. There's nothing wrong with that, but it needs to be intentional. It needs to be something that leadership is setting. It's a course that leadership is setting upon with full understanding of what it means. And again, going through all of the things we've already talked about what bridges we're going to have to burn, what significant relationships we're going to have to change in the organization in order to get there. And just like we have to say no on the business level, we have to learn how to say no to opportunities on the personal level. And I will be honest, pre-COVID, I was really good at following this rubric that I developed a number of years ago about trying to decide which commitments I would accept and which commitments I wouldn't. But then we had a year of COVID and I got lonely. I'm the extrovert. I need to be out talking to people. I need to have lunch with people. During COVID, during a normal pre-COVID, I would normally have lunch with some breakfast with friends, coffee at least with friends, 2 or 3 mornings a week. Well, COVID hit, all the coffee shops in Fort Worth closed for a while, except for the Starbucks in Kroger. And so one of my buddies and I would meet at the Kroger near my house, buy a Starbucks and walk the aisles, because that was the only thing that was available to us. And I needed to do that. So I was, the 6 or 8 months that we were really locked down in COVID were horrible for me. They were really hard. That isolation is just not what I'm built for. And we did a lot of webinar stuff and all that, but it just wasn't the same. So as soon as stuff opened back up, and then especially in April and May, when people started having live conferences again, I said yes to everything because I was so excited about being out there. And now I'm realizing I've said yes to a lot of fun and exciting things, but they're not always the right things for me to say yes to. And some of them are commitments to speak at a conference or to be someplace and assist somebody, to mentor somebody. There are a lot of great things that I've had opportunities to do this year, but not all of them really help me move forward. And so I personally need to get back to this idea that I need to say no more often to opportunities, and I need to follow these guidelines. And the first question is this opportunity in line with my personal and professional values? And if it's no, I need to, either delegate it or just say, no, thank you. And then the next question is it a hell yeah? It's just that unique opportunity that's a once in a lifetime type event or opportunity that I'm not going to get another chance to do. And it's just a really neat time to work with a special company or work with some unique kind of people or learn something really great. Then maybe yes. So I go through this rubric. I need to do it a lot more just personally to get where I need to go to be as successful and spend my time on the really important stuff. Because sometimes we can fill our days with things that aren't really going to be as rewarding as we'd like. And I think Warren Buffett said it really well when he said that, really successful people say no to almost everything. And that's probably why I don't have Warren Buffett money, because I'm just a boy who can't say no. So I'm working on it. But I think that's something we need to constantly be skeptical of, is every new opportunity that comes along. We don't have to take every single one of those things, of those opportunities. Oops, excuse me. There we go. I'm having a button problem. It helps if you push the right buttons when you're trying to do things. So again, the books, Strategy and the Fat Smoker by David Maister, Good to Great by Jim Collins, and Traction, Getting a Grip on Your Business by Gino Wickman. And you think about the last two books as books for business owners or founders or people like that. And I'm here to tell you that the stuff that you learn in Traction, the stuff you learn about great businesses in all of Jim Collins' writing, is stuff that you can apply in HR, in accounting, in whatever your domain is in the organization. You can apply that stuff. It's really not just the domain of the visionary or the CEO or the founder, whoever's in that role in your organization. It's not just their role to think big about what the organization could be and the best way to execute strategy. Every contributor in the organization has a role to play there. And as I said earlier, this is approved for a professional development credit for SHRM certified professionals, and if you're HRCI certified, a business credit if you're an SPHR. And watch your email probably late this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning. There will be an email with the recertification information. And in case there are any questions, let me look at the questions real quick. It doesn't look like it. Melinda said that the Boys and Girls Club uses EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system mentioned when I was talking about the Traction book, Gino Wickman's book. So not having any questions, I'm going to drop one thing in the chat for everybody. Click on that link. Good Morning HR is my new podcast. Episode number 4 dropped today. So don't listen to it because of me. I'm just the guy asking the questions. That's kind of my specialty, as being the dumb guy who picks the brains of smart people. And so I think every one of my guests so far has been really bright. I've got the next 9 or 10 episodes, so it drops every Thursday morning. The next 9 or 10 are already lined up. And in relation to the Fort Worth HR Strategic Mindset Conference, which is a full day of HRCI business credit, which is also going to be great for anybody who's got SHRM certification. That is on September 17th. And I'm interviewing all of their speakers, almost all of their speakers. And I'm one of them, so I want to interview myself. But between now and the September 17th, we'll be publishing special editions of the podcast just to promote Fort Worth HR's Strategic Mindset Conference. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope this has been helpful. Yeah, and as always, my email is right there. Don't hesitate to reach out, to shoot me an email, give me a call if I can help, certainly with any things we talked about today, or if you need better background checks on your prospective employees, if you need due diligence on business partners or procurement ventures or anything like that, if you need information about people that you're involving in your business, please don't hesitate to reach out to us as well, because I'd love to help you do that on a really excellent level. Thanks. Have a great one. I appreciate you joining us. I hope to see you in a few weeks at our next webinar. Bye-bye.